Hi, Patty. I'm so glad we're chatting today.
Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk about the pre-launch plan program and the great results that you saw while doing it. Can you tell us a little bit about you and your business?
Yeah, so I run a membership called Network. It's for mid-career visual artists. We help artists get the shows, grants, and residencies of their dreams. And I've been doing this for about 5 years. Prior to this, I had a career in the media industry and as an educator. And I came to this, I think, mostly out of, I don't know, in a state of frustration and um, lack of work, to be honest, because the media industry is uh, very much hollowed out at this point.
Yeah, and so with your membership, can you talk about like before you joined the pre-launch plan program, like what was kind of going on in your business, and what was that thing that maybe you were struggling with or didn't even realize you were struggling with?
Yeah, so before I came to you, I've been doing this for 5 years, and generally speaking, I think I've been pretty successful. Um, But at the time that I had come to you, I was very worried about the business in general. The profits that I had were down by about 50% um, from the year prior at that same time. And, there were a lot of contributing factors to that. We'd made a bunch of changes in the business programmatically, which meant that we weren't able to launch as often as we normally did. But also, I think that the economy had really shifted and there was a lot more buyer hesitancy out there. And so I had really wanted to be able to capitalize on my Black Friday sale, which I do every year, and try and make up some ground. Although at that point, actually, that when I'm thinking about it now, I'm not even sure I was thinking about it that way. My main concern at that point was that um, I not tank. So, so, uh, I wasn't even going in with the expectation that my numbers would even be the same. But when I came to you, I was very concerned that I just wasn't going to be able to meet my goals and that the economy would continue to be a drag on the business in a way where that would make the business a little bit more unstable than I was comfortable with.
Yeah, I hear you. It's definitely what I'm hearing a lot from right now too, and putting forth like the same effort. And I don't know if this is you, I don't want to speak for you, but like the same effort, but like getting, the same, if not diminishing results and being kind of like, what's going on?
Yeah, well, that was something I was also finding too. I was trying to shift what I was doing. I don't think that and the things that I was doing a couple years ago weren't working. And so I did find that when I changed things, um, that I started delivering webinars that I felt had a little bit more educational value, and I felt like that shifted our conversion a little bit. But I was really looking for ways, things that I hadn't done, that I could make up some ground on. And I think that that's like one thing as a business owner, you're always kind of looking for, like what are the places where I have room to grow? And a lot of the like where I was as a business owner is I felt like I had basically maximized the growth potential that I had in a lot of areas. And that was also why the increased buyer hesitancy was so worrying to me because I really wasn't sure what else I could do.
Yeah, and something that you talked about in the past is that, maybe didn't even realize like that you needed a pre-launch. Like you had like a lot of nurture sequences and that you had a lot of, and you pretty much had your, promo sequences or buying sequences down that maybe like you didn't exactly realize. And the other thing I'd like to ask you about too, in that same vein, is that, I think even when we think about hesitancy, you had some hesitancy even joining this program. So can you talk a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, so 100%. Like pre-launch was not in my vocabulary at all. I'd never heard it before, and I wasn't thinking about it at all. Because I have something of a media background and marketing, I really didn't think that I needed a lot of help in that capacity. And I had had a lot of success already with the marketing that I did. Pretty much uniformly when people look at my copy, they say, "Oh, it's really good." So I one thing that was not on my radar was let's work with somebody else who could help my copy, because I felt also that I had worked with some really, really good people in the past. So it wasn't on my on my radar at all. And I think it was Laura Belgrade that sent out an email that got me to sign up. And that was because she was somebody who I felt was probably at my level at from copy standpoint or above. And she said that she benefited from that. And so I actually I went from having never heard of your program, anything about you, to clicking one email and purchasing right away. Now, that might have contributed to why I felt nervous after the fact, because I was like, oh my
Yes.
God, what have I done? But it was something that I hadn't considered. And it was also something that I recognized when I saw it. The reason I purchased it was that I re immediately recognized that it was a hole. Now, I did have some second thoughts even after I purchased. And the reason for that is that I have done a lot of, some of the exercises, like I sort of briefly went through the curriculum and I was like, well, I've done a lot of this stuff before. Um, is this really going to help me? And that's where I got pretty nervous because I kind of felt like, if I've done this before, what do I need a program for? And I will also say that I was 100% wrong about that. Gladly. Glad to
Yeah.
report. Like,
Yeah, so I want to really like go into that because I think that's, what we think sometimes is like, oh, I've already done something like this or I already know this. So can you talk about like what happened in the program and like what that shift was from what you felt like you knew to like, oh, okay, this maybe wasn't something I fully knew.
yeah, so I think there's really two components to this. Now, the first is that some of the stuff I did know, absolutely. Um, but there's a really within the program, and I have to say, like, kudos to you, Brenna, because you have designed a really easy to follow program. And just because I had done some of this stuff before doesn't mean that I was actually doing it. So
Yeah.
that was, a big thing. And you had a program set up that, frankly, is just like, from an educational standpoint, beautiful. It's really easy to follow. It's structured in a way that, is not overwhelming. I did that to myself because my timeline was so condensed. I joined in October and immediately I was like, okay, I got to get this running right away. Because uh, or I guess I joined in September, but like it was the last month. And then immediately I flew into doing all the work that's related to the program so that I could launch um, the Black Friday sale that I had. But the other thing is when we got into, I think it was week 2 or 3, and we started writing the emails that were pre-sale emails, I realized I had no idea how to write those because I was so used to writing copy that was actually a little like it's very sort of aggressive sales copy in a way. It's like we want you to buy this. Here are all the reasons that it's amazing. This amazing product is going to change your life. And what it doesn't do is account for the full buyer journey when you have somebody who is not quite at the like I just need to pull the trigger on this, and somebody who but also is not in a nurture sequence when you're just sort of I think the marketing term for this is giving them value or whatever, which I actually think is kind of a silly term for this stuff. But like what happened with my emails is they became much more substantial. Like I actually felt like I felt more proud of the work that I was doing, which was really so important to me because when I show up, if the my customers, I think sometimes people from the outside might think that artists have a kind of blessed life because they're able to do what they like and make art and all the rest, but they don't make very much money at all. They're doing these jobs on top of their regular jobs. It's very difficult for them to make a living and a life out of in the industry that we're in. And I felt like suddenly I was delivering them information that was much more valuable. And I was also able, like I thought, in the past, I'd actually worked with somebody who'd said, I don't think anybody knows your customers, like knows their customers as well as you know yours. And what happened actually was that I learned that although I knew my customers very well, I didn't know, I didn't have a granular idea of like which were the top problems and which were lower rating on the scale. And so when I started working with you, I sent out surveys to get information about that. The other thing that sorry to just go on, but this is
I
actually
love this. I want to hear it all.
the other thing that I really benefited from was just learning how you use technology and AI and podcasts and things like that because it gave me a lot of additional tools that I could bring to the people that I work with. So I was able to not only deliver more value to my customers via my email campaigns and the pre-sale launch and all of that, but I was also able to um, be able to deliver things programmatically in a different way. So even things that your program doesn't promise, it delivers, which I thought was just, you know, a very, very great outcome for me as a customer.
Yeah, I love everything that you're saying because sometimes the benefits that we get inside of a program aren't even the ones that we were necessarily expecting.
Yeah.
And I love that it was so helpful for you. There's something that I want to circle back to real quick because I know this is something where my people get stuck. And, when we think about the differences between, and I would love to know like your definition, which is the difference between like the nurture content that you were doing versus the content that you were doing that was more promotional and hard sales, like how you felt like the pre-launch content was a little bit different.
Yeah, that's actually a difficult question to answer because I still feel like I am learning from the pre-launch material. Um, but I mean, partially the pre-launch material, I feel like some of that material can be integrated into the nurture campaigns. Um, but to me, the pre-launch material is really about it's centered in storytelling, um, and it breaks down like what the program actually delivers. So rather than just having like my nurture content was really just like, here's something that shows that I'm an authority in X. Here's something that I wrote that you might find valuable. Whereas the pre-sale stuff is much more designed to give somebody an idea of what you offer, what you specifically offer. So by the time they get to it, they're not surprised. And that, frankly, that really worked.
Yeah. Thank you. I love hearing like different definitions and like how, people think about it. And one other question before we move on, is I know for my people, especially, the people that I serve are just like you, very successful, have done a lot of launches. Like your membership is extremely successful, but they're a little hesitant about like, will I get the promise once I'm in the program? What
Yeah.
will the person facilitating the program? Are they just really good at marketing, or are they actually going to like show up? So can you speak to your experience about that as well and working with me?
Like you mean, um, did you actually show up? Is that the question?
Yeah, I think so. Like, did I actually do what I said I was going to do? Am I a decent human being? Like those like general questions, because that's something that we're worried. Like I was actually doing my own research yesterday, and what, I was seeing, it was very broad research, but like even broad research about online businesses, I'm hesitant. All of these courses are trash, like things like that, and people are just nervous to invest. Like I actually have had one person who's actually going to buy this time. They're like, I swore off that I wasn't going to buy another program or course, and I think that's the mind frame a lot of us are in, just because of our experience of because we are so experienced and have so many skills as business owners, and because of our past experience with working in other courses that maybe didn't quite deliver.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the thing that is really great about your program and also just working with you is that you do show up. Like, in a way that also I would say that you exceed expectations in that capacity. So, if I ask for feedback on materials, I get that like the turnaround day time is like 48 hours or something like that. But normally you'll do it within 24, sometimes, much, much faster, which I just think is I would never ask that of anybody, but it's actually usually what I need as a very busy
Right.
business owner. And I think the thing is that also you, when you show up and you give feedback, first of all, it's kind. It comes from a place of caring. You can see in everything that you do that you care about the results that people get, no matter where they are in their particular um, journey, in their particular business journey. Like you meet them where they are and help them move forward. And I actually think that within this industry, there really aren't that many people who are like that. And I tend to seek them out when I find them because there's actually a level of nerdiness that you have that I really appreciate and can relate to. Like I'm a total art nerd, like I am in it. And when I talk to you, I know that like the things that you do related to pre-sale, but also within the coaching industry, you have a very good understanding of like the industry that you are participating in. So again, I think this goes back to, when I signed up for this, this is the promise, but actually this is how much larger like the delivery actually is. And in your case, I think that the delivery is far larger than the promise. That's always what you want, but
Totally.
you know, but it's never what I would expect. Um, and that's I like, and that also I think is fine. Like it's fine to purchase something and have your expectations met, and that's great, but when something exceeds to this degree, I mean, it feels very special.
Well, thank you.
So
I
that
appreciate that.
it's a big deal. It really is.
Yeah. Well, I right here, I'm like, I won't get emotional, but I appreciate that. I mean, it means a lot to me. And so now let's talk about like, okay, you went through the program, things were wonderful, but can you talk about like what happened after you implemented, with that Black Friday launch and what your results were?
Yeah, so we did so first of all, I think my expectations were that I would do less well than I did last year because that had really been the trend up until that Black Friday sale. Um but honestly, I did kind of have a sense that it was possible that we would really exceed what I had been expecting. And part of that was that, first of all, I was answering emails all the time. And like that was exciting, when you're writing things, it's the pre-sale, so people aren't responding to you specifically about your like purchasing something, but they're responding because they're excited by what you're telling them and what you're offering. That was amazing. So I was already having conversations and people who were sort of lining up at the door before we had opened.
So
Now
they
the
just to
sales
clarify, they were replying to the emails, the pre-launch emails that you were writing, that they were excited. Like
exactly.
sounds like there was a lot more engagement.
Exactly. There was a lot more engagement. Um, and I mean, the metric is a little bit weird because I had no pre-launch sequence. So, but
Right.
the nurture sequence, like I don't know, I almost never got a response from any of that. But the pre-sale, I got tons of responses. So that's as somebody who does a lot of sales and very much enjoys the process, like I was like, this is great. I could do this all day because like, you just know that the people who are responding because you've delivered something already that is of value to them, and they are interested in the program because they are an actual good match. And that is
Hmm.
something, as somebody who runs a membership, this is very, very important because I run a membership that is built on communities. If I get a bunch of jerks in there, like it can really ruin the entire experience for everyone. So my marketing has to be very specific and filter out the people who are not going to be a good fit. And I had people who I knew were much better fits than I had before. So that also was just like, it wasn't just like, hey, I was selling more stuff, which at that we haven't even gotten to the point where I sell more stuff. But the people I was talking to were the right people. So that was major. And then, so for the sale, when the sale started, we immediately did extremely well. So I beat my numbers, I think it was by 50, like I made $50,000 more in November than I did the year prior. So that month was just gangbusters. Um, and then the next month, uh, we ran another sale at the end of the year, but all of that pre-sale work had been done, and we did gangbusters again. So in that case, I beat my numbers. In that case, it was by 5K, but like I made about $300,000 in gross um gross revenue in 2 months. So
Wow.
that really changed my numbers for the year. So that it was a really, really big deal.
Yeah,
Um,
I think on something you wrote, I think you were said that you were down 50% for the year
I
and
was.
that those 2 months that you actually made up and reached your income goals.
Yep. Yeah, we I was like at the end I was like a little bit behind, but it was percentage wise from the year prior, but by it was negligible. Um so that was definitely an outcome I was very happy with. It made my holidays a lot less stressful.
I
I'll say
bet.
that.
Yeah.
And yeah, and yeah, I was actually just that was really nice. I was just happy for an extended period of time, which I think as business owners, because running a business is honestly just so stressful, um, to have that kind of reprieve, um, really just feels fear. You just can't underestimate how good it feels when you get that kind of result.
Yeah, absolutely. It is make a huge, I think sometimes there's this stress that we don't even realize is kind of there. And then like when things start to roll and the income starts going in and you can like, oh, I actually feel a little bit more relaxed. So
Yeah.
I hear you because I've been in those situations before myself where I'm like, oh crap, this isn't looking good. And then things start to turn around and you're like, okay, this feels amazing. And I love that. And so I think one of the questions here as we wrap up, I know people are like, okay, what about my ROI? Will I make my money back? And it sounds like here, you made your money back
Oh
tenfold.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I think maybe even like 100-fold probably with those
Yeah.
numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah. People, I
if
mean, I don't think that's really like, I don't know if that's a question, but I do think that, yeah, if you take this course, there will be a return on your investment. Um, but like anything else, it's like you have to do the work, right? So,
yeah.
if you don't do that, you won't have a return. But I do think that even if you were to only do, you know, a part of the program or something like that, you would still get like the learning outcomes of it are really significant. Like um I actually if you did all of the customer research and then implemented it, I actually don't know how you wouldn't make a return. Like I actually can't game that out in my head like you the I it's almost inevitable. Like there's an inevitability about being able to make a return on the investment if you do the work.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And it's like actually doing it. And I think too, even if you're someone like yourself who's done some of this work before, but like there, I think it comes even when you've done it, when you revisit it and you revisit it through maybe the lens of the program or the lens of seeing it from like different angles, it always opens up like new opportunities of how you can be talking to your person. Even for me, when I do it for myself, and also things that I've maybe have missed or things that I start to notice every time, and I just happen to be doing it for myself, over the last month or so, is that I'm like, oh, I'm hearing something different. Like the temperature has changed just a little bit in like the types of
Yeah.
responses that I'm hearing that I'm able to go through with it and implement and tweak. But while also having this like rinse and repeat system that you can use like again and again, which I think is also like, could you maybe speak to that just a little bit? Like, especially because you do launches all the time.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I've already been able to use this. So that like um that's been a real positive. I also think that because like, if somebody goes through the pre-launch cycle, like there also is a kind of, for lack of a better word, a kind of long tail effect, right? So
Mhm.
they've gone through it, but I still feel like my sales from, so I'm actually just finishing up a launch and I can see the difference in how they're responding to my emails because of all the research I did and the people who have been in the system for a little bit longer, the conversion rate is better. So there's really there's a long tail effect of even doing a pre-launch once that makes a big difference. Um, I can't remember the question I was answering. I'm
No, I
sorry.
think you answered it. And I think it was basically like this isn't like something that you invest in once. And I guess that's my question. I don't want to speak like the way that I've tried to set it up is that it's not something that you just do, it's like one and done. It's something that not only do you get long-term effects for, but that you have a process of for every time you launch, every time you have a promotion, you have a process that you know to do for the pre-launch and what to do with
Yeah,
your
yeah,
content
for
right
sure.
before you launch. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in full transparency, I haven't always been able to implement a pre-launch in a launch. And that is because sometimes I hate to admit this, but it's just a reality. I am a little bit of a fly by the seat of the pantser. Um, and so sometimes, I look at a month and I'm like, oh, I think this is just, I'm not going to meet my revenue goals if I don't do something. And so I'll do something on the fly. So in that case, the pre-sale doesn't work for me. Um, but that's where I think the effects of like the long tail effects of the pre-sale are important. But I've also been able to um, schedule it in my calendar so that I'll be doing it again come this spring, like redoing the research, because it's exactly as you said, like especially right now where we live in times that feel very uncertain and so much is changing, within a couple of months, the way that people respond to what you're doing can change quite radically. So, um, so that's already built into the schedule. And the other thing is, and I you have I can't remember the name of the program. It's like after the lunch or something. So like
Yes.
the so I'm in that. So that's a program that you can take after the fact. And the reason I did that was because I felt, well, first of all, it was such a good deal, but like I just wanted somebody who had like a really good sense of copy and um editing on my work because I feel like I'm pretty good, but I'm also pretty sloppy, you know, like I forget things and um, so for me anyway, it's just been really helpful to have um to just always remember that um you don't have to work alone. There's a lot of ways that you can be you can find support for the things that make a difference in your business. And I found that I've been able to both take the results that you gave me with the first arm of this program, and I could have just not continued at all. because like the results were replicable enough that I didn't feel like, I would need to reinvent the wheel. But I
Hmm.
also recognize the value of what you as a person bring to the table. And I think earlier we also talked about like, you know, are you a good person? Do you care? Well, when you find somebody who cares about your business and their business to the degree that you and I both care about the work that we do, you do not let them go, right? You keep them in your
Yes.
life because they will improve the results for your business, but they also nurture your soul, right? Like it's not, for me anyway, I'm not really in this to make a lot of money. I'm in this to help people. And my belief is that the more people I connect with and the more fulfilling relationships I have, um, that facilitate growth, the better the business will be. And that has borne out to be true.
So true. Absolutely. I love that. So as we wrap up here, my last question for you is if, not to put you on the spot, but if like someone was like on the fence thinking about joining the pre-launch plan program, what would you say to them?
Do it. Just, I mean, you got to dive in. That's part of it. So if you're on the fence, it's in my estimation, usually the reason that when I'm on the fence for things, it's usually because I don't know if I will really get the return that I need, and I'm in an unstable moment, right? So when you're in an unstable moment, it's harder to invest in things
Mm-hmm.
because you actually need the return. Um, and I think people often say, if you can't get the money back, then like if you lose the money, then you shouldn't invest in the first, like if you can't afford to lose the money, then you shouldn't invest in the first place. But a lot of times as business owners, we get to places where you can't afford to lose the money, but you also can't afford not to invest. And that is when it is the most important time to invest in yourself. And it's also the hardest. Emotionally, it is very hard to bet on yourself and really go all in. And this is where I think programs, specifically your program, really makes a difference because if you are at a certain point where, especially if you're like a person like me, where you have a lot of these funnels built out, but they're not converting as well as they could have, and you feel like you you need another like lever at your control. This is when it's especially important to invest in yourself because when you do that, the returns do come back to you. So I think this is the perfect time to do that, especially if you're in a sort of precarious position because this is the time, like this is the program that actually will make a difference, and is that extra lever that you need.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't have said it any better myself. So thank you, Patty. I appreciate you so much.
Sure thing.